Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I've got a full tank review for you on the Tier 8 British light tank. It's the LHMTV, and unlike its predecessor, the Tier 7 setter, this vehicle actually has a bit of a gun that might be of interest to you. Alright, so hang around, I've got some Ace Tanker gameplay coming right up after I give a full rundown of the statistics of this tank so you can know everything about it and see how it stacks up to some of its Tier 8 competition. So firstly, I want to do something that I think a lot of you really enjoyed about my setter tank review, and that is that I let you know what modules I thought was best to spend the free experience on. So the first thing to know about the LHMTV is that you need to have the upgraded tracks on this vehicle if you want to use the top engine. And that's because, for some reason, the top engine is 250 kilograms heavier, but only 20 extra horsepower than the stock engine. And so if you actually use the stock engine on this tank, you can get away with it being fully upgraded and also using the stock tracks. And when I say fully upgraded, you can use your full plethora of equipment. You can use your vert stabs, your coated optics, and your gun rammer on this tank. You can also use the top turret on the vehicle and the top 85mm gun. Now this top 85mm gun really is a much better armament to be using on the tank. And so if you can, try and save up the 16,200 experience it is to get the turret, and then the 22,000 it is to be able to get the gun. But rest in peace, at least knowing that you're not going to have to unlock the Rolls-Royce engine for 16,000 free experience and the tracks before you can equip both of those modules. And this tank, even without the engine and without the tracks, is still rather good. Then your next upgrade order, of course, is to not get the engine, because you can't mount the engine until you get the tracks because it's so substantially heavier. And there you go. Job done. You're sorted. And to be honest, the LHMTV, if you do have the 36,000 free experience, or sorry, 38,000 free experience that you would need to have both of those modules, is not too bad. And if you don't have any free experience whatsoever, I still thoroughly recommend getting the turret, followed by the gun, followed by the tracks, followed by the engine on this tank. Another passing mention should be made to those of you who absolutely, utterly want to just race your way through this tank and play it as little as you can, because maybe you just want to get to the Manticore, that the engine on this vehicle only actually increases your horsepower by about 10%. Because even though it increases your engine power by 20 horsepower, it increases your weight so much that it's not actually that much of an upgrade. And this engine is actually the stock engine on the G-Saw, and so you could save yourself 16,000 experience and just unlock it for free by purchasing the next tank. But I personally think that playing this vehicle in a worse form to save yourself 16,000 experience, you're still going to have to grind 165,000 experience, and I think you'll probably end up annoying yourself more than if you just spend it. So now that you know how to equip it, let's see how the LHMTV stacks up compared to some of its competition in the form of the HWK-12 and also the premium variant, the HWK-30. So immediately, worst damage per minute of any Tier 8 tank. 1,380 is abysmal. It was bad on the setter. It's just tragic on the LHMTV. You're going to need multiple minutes to be able to kill your opponents. But on the other hand, the fact that this gun is just so much higher in alpha damage, now up to 230 compared to the 135 that you had to deal with on the setter, it kind of feels like it's a much bigger upgrade. There's one thing about having bad damage per minute, and then it's a whole different ball game when you have bad damage per minute and low alpha damage like the setter had. Which is why I've been enjoying the LHMTV so much more than I did the setter. Now, don't jump to conclusions. I'm still not saying that this is a fantastic tank, but at least the alpha damage on it means that you can fire out a shot, wait for those 10 seconds to be able to evade your enemy's detection, and then come back out and hopefully do it all over again. The setter, on the other hand, was only dealing 135 damage per shot unless you load high explosive rounds in that vehicle to really try and maximize your damage output. It was just absolutely tragic. Now, I'd like to also clarify that 230 alpha damage, while it's a big upgrade compared to the setter, it is not that impressive for a Tier 8 light tank. As we can see, the HWK-12 has 240, and the HWK-30 has 240, and vehicles like the Black Dog and the ELC even 90 are packing that much alpha damage, but in the French tank's case, with an autoloader. I really recommend that you do everything that you can to try and make sure that you never get caught in an all-in engagement in the LHMTV, because every time that I have, It's usually been a one-way trip to the garage, or I've suffered such substantial, oh my god, it's a tongue twister, loss in my hit points that I'm no longer able to be effective in the battle. The LHMTV's other two ammunition types are APCR with 258mm of pen, really nice. But the high explosive rounds on this tank are lacking compared to the setter, with a paltry 50 damage increase and only 42mm of penetration. They aren't really going to work very well. When we look at the high explosive rounds on the HWK-30, for example, yeah, 102mm of penetration and 320 alpha damage. Yeah, this isn't really comparable to those. Another thing that truly sucks about this British light tank, just like all the others, is its complete tragic amount of ammunition. 25 rounds means that quite often you are going to have to take no high explosive rounds like I do in this tank because they're awful anyway. But you're going to chew through your standard ammunition inside a good matchup, or you're going to run out of APCR rounds in a tier 10 matchup. And unless you're really careful with your ammunition, you'll end up running low towards the end of the battle, or you won't have the right kind of ammo for the job. Alright, so let's move on to the gun handling. Not really very good news here for the LHMTV. 2.2 seconds aim time and 0.37 accuracy means it's not very good at sniping, and its dispersion values are worse when moving and also when turning the turret compared to the HWK-12 and the HWK-30. The gun depression on the other hand is really nice at 10 degrees, a lot like the two German tanks in this comparison. And that makes this vehicle rather flexible on a ridgeline, and considering how the gun is right up at the top of the turret, you don't really have to expose much of your tank to be able to engage your opponents effectively. Definitely one of the strengths of the tank. However, also keep in mind that I believe that currently this tank is bugged. And for some reason, I think the actual viewports that you see out of inside the sniper mode are here, or alternatively, they're in the center of the turret, roughly about here. So, Wargaming, but please take a look into this. I think that it's bugged. I've got a funny feeling that everybody's exposing more of their turret than they need to, and please change the sniper mode so it's looking out the gun barrel, as with all of the other vehicles. And what this means for players who want to play the LHMTV right now before hopefully Wargaming actually get round to making that change on this tank, that be careful. When you're in sniper mode and you're going over a ridge line, you're going to be exposing a lot more of your tank than you actually think you are. Alright, so now on to its mobility. 63 forwards is not exactly fantastic for a tier 8 light tank, but it is better than the setter was. And 23 backwards is very nice. You're going to be able to pull back over a ridgeline fairly quickly to be able to avoid taking the shot into your inevitable turret bug. The vehicle is also incredibly light at less than 5 tons, so do everything that you can to avoid being rammed in this tank, and it doesn't matter what tank you are. If, I guess unless you're another British light tank, or maybe even the ELC, even 90, ram this thing. If you ram it, even if you bump into it marginally, it's going to lose a huge amount of hit points. The power to weight ratio of this vehicle is not bad at 33.3, but again, not as nearly as good as the HWK-12, but it's better than the HWK-30, makes that look like a bit of a sluggish tank. But I'd probably rather be able to go at 70 and 24 backwards in retrospect. The ground resistances on this tank are neither good nor bad. And funnily enough, when we combine all of these features, it actually has worse traverse speed because it's got slightly worse tank traverse than the HWK-12. This thing does feel fairly sluggish on medium terrain and soft terrain because Wargaming have also got hidden statistics that I believe you can't actually see on a website like TanksGG. It's kind of like a traverse balancing factor, and it does make this tank feel like you're driving something that is substantially more sluggish. Alright, so now onto the armor of the vehicle. Not really good news for the hull. Everything's going to be overmatching you pretty much. The turret armor, on the other hand, at the front is 60, so it will very occasionally pull off a ricochet, but you definitely shouldn't depend on it. And 25 at the side and 20 at the rear means that you will get overmatched. The hit points at 1050 means that it can't take a shot from many tier 10 tank destroyers, at least 50% of the time. And now on to the worst thing about the tank, at least for me, is the view range. 380, come on. This means that even if I have a fully tricked out crew, as you see here, I'm using a premium consumable and I'm using coated optics, I have 467 meters view range. It's definitely not great. Whereas other vehicles, such as the HWK, which you see me using in this comparison, have a whopping amount of view range. And when we have our crew fully equipped in this tank, we can have 519 meters. Although that is me using vents and not using vertical stabilizers on this tank, so do take that into account. But 519, the fact that you can have 50 or 60 meters more view range on this tank, this base view range is just so important because of the way that it scales with all of the other crew skills that affect view range. Consequently, this means that the LHMTV is nor the best scout nor the worst. Its camo rating is what makes up for this poor view range at 40.53, but I still just absolutely wonder why a tank that's this size, at 40.53% camo, while moving and while stationary, has worse camo than the French light tank at 41.8. It's tiny. How can this thing be more stealthy than this thing? Even the Lynx has 40.12, and it's much bigger than the LHMTV is. Why are these things not more stealthy? Sure, they are small in stature, which makes them, I guess, a little bit tricky to be able to hit if they're able to drive around quickly. And thankfully, this one is a lot faster than the setter, so you can avoid quite a few more shells. But it's also just not quite enough. Worst in class view range, not best in class camo, definitely best in class size. But as long as people can aim straight, it doesn't really matter. It's not like this thing is an ELC even 90, which as we can see here really takes the size difference to a whole new level. Anyway, who cares about all these statistics? Let's see how it performs on the battlefield. So firstly, I'm going to show you the dream scouting scenario for the LHMTV. Okay, you're in a nice matchup. When I say dream scenario, I mean, I prefer there to be a load of artillery, right? To shoot what I spot. But the best map, without a doubt, Prokhorovka is the best map for a light tank. Especially now that Wargaming have decided to stealth nerf some of the bushes, and how they mentioned it in the patch notes, saying, we removed the opportunity for a double bush. No, Wargaming, what you've done is you removed one of the bushes that a lot of the light tanks would use to be able to spot out from. But okay, that's fine. Now one of the second best light tank map in the game, maybe a shadow of its former self. But yeah, this is really what the gameplay comes down to. I found to be most successful inside my British light tanks. You get forwards, you get into a bush, and that's how you start off the game. You try and take advantage of an early spotting position, and even if you only have the 460 meters view range that I have on this tank, if the enemies get so close to them that you can almost hit them with your sword, then yeah, you're going to still be doing pretty alright. Now, one thing I'd like to mention about this vehicle you see me aiming around here is I'm actually showing you that the gun elevation on this tank is really good over the front of the vehicle. You can depress the gun really well over the front, but you can't depress the gun very well over the back or the side. And so, if you want to master this tank, definitely consider that when you want to aim up at your opponents, if they're above you, or maybe if you're just driving down slope, that to be able to really elevate the gun, you need to be pointing your hull directly towards them. That's just not very useful for when you want to set up to be able to run away, right, ladies and gents? Yeah, okay. Alright, so in this scenario, I really don't want to fire because there could be any number of tanks that are down the back of the map. What I want to do right now is just continue to passively scout. Now, some of you who want to play the vehicle in this way, and some of you who don't have exceptionally skilled crew, I'd actually recommend to not use coated optics on this tank. I'd recommend to use binoculars instead. If you use binoculars, then you're going to have 25 meters view range when you're stationary, compared to having 10% sorry, did I say 25 meters? 25% extra view range when you're stationary, compared to the 10% that you will have from coated optics all the time. Now, one thing you see me doing here is I've actually reversed back behind the bushes to a point where I don't think I'm going to get spotted, because I really want to remove the eyes of the enemy team. If you can remove the eyes of the enemy team, then how can they see you coming? And when you're in a light tank and vision is absolutely paramount to these vehicles, then I feel like that's a trade that I'm worth making. I think it's a risk that it's worth making to try and make a trade that's going to definitely pay off for me later on. So now I'm advancing through the middle of these bushes. Sometimes I like to go through the actual bush itself, but I found that actually driving along this way, apart from the gaps that you find in the vision there, is more than enough to be able to spot out down this flank. And when you've got 40% camo rating when moving, you're going to be able to, and you're also quite small, then yeah, I feel like this tank's actually pretty good for making aggressive plays. I think only the French-wheeled light tanks will be better for doing active scouting, even though this tank likes to just sit in a bush and wait. It's a bit of a weird one, really. So I'm going to stop momentarily to see if I can engage the E-25. But as I showed when we were doing the statistical analysis on this tank, it really doesn't have the best dispersion values when moving and also when turning the turret. And so you really have to be sitting still for quite a long time to be actively engaging your opponents in this tank, so definitely keep that in mind. So I decided to no longer shoot the E-25, instead I go for the T-28. And as these mounds are a little bit bumpy, we don't actually manage to hit that tank. Luckily, I used my speed to be able to avoid the traverse of the T-28, and I'm quite surprised that we haven't spotted more tanks down here. But just look at this. Look at this. I'm driving around like a hero. I got a terrible gun, so I'm at 791 damage. I did 1,380 spotting. Best map for a tier 8 light tank. It hasn't really worked out very well, has it? Well, I guess I'm just going to have to turn the aggression up to 10 or something at this stage of the game. Considering that I have most of my hit points, and there's only a third of the team left alive for our opponents, then I guess it might be okay for me to be able to turn that aggression up. So we're just going to go and plant ourselves up in this location, drive around, and hopefully we're going to get some spots. When we spot the Chi-Ri down below us, we're going to put a round into him. Then the T-29 and the U-Des appear as well. And I'm wondering, I guess I got spotted by any number of tanks. We've also got an IKV there. I talk about a target-rich environment, right, ladies and gents? Ripping apart, well, not really ripping apart anything with 230 alpha damage every once in a while. More like slowly removing their hit points in a methodical fashion. And that Tiger, I don't know what he was doing camping down there, but I'll take it, right? So I used the train on my left to avoid the Tiger and put a round into the T-29. And do you also notice how the rounds are coming from almost above our sniper view? That adds weight to how I feel that the actual sniper view is bugged on this tank. And when you're actually inside sniper mode, you're looking out the center of the turret. And as the gun is mounted towards the top part of the turret, then I think it's causing a bug right now. And so if you're wondering why the shells are kind of coming in from above, Wargaming, please take a look at it. And I'd love to hear back whether it is actually a bug with the tank, because I've been feeling it the whole time I've been playing this vehicle. Alright, so we put it around into the back of the IKV there. And finally, our total is starting to look a little better. We're up to 2,300 damage. I mean, if I was playing any other light tank, it would definitely be at least 3k or 3.5k by now. But whatever, right? I'm never going to call this a bad result for a tier 8 light tank. But considering it is the best map, and we've been in a very nice scenario for the tank, I'm not going to lie. I kind of was expecting a little bit more than 6.6k for an absolute riot through the enemy team. Alright, so round 2. After camping in the best possible matchup, I wanted to also show you how the tank can perform in the least favorable matchup, i.e. having to deal with tier 10 tanks on the enemy team. And when I see something like this, an AMX-13-105 on the enemy team, I just get really anxious in a tank like this. He can kill you within 5 seconds of the first shot in a single magazine. And that's if he doesn't ram you a little bit. If he rams you, he can kill you in 2 shots. Oh well. The life of a British light tank, right? Constantly in fear, constantly against the meta. The underdog. Well, hopefully the underdog will bite back here. Whoa, that's a good start for the underdog. The Batchat 12T decided to try and make a sneaky play. And luckily for me, I've spawned on the side which has substantially more cover from an advancing enemy team. But I've got to hurry up because that AMX-13-105 is down below me, and so I'm going to risk hit points here. We don't manage to hit the standard B, but that's not the end of the world. To take a shot, to be able to claim the hill, is not a bad trade. Now I'm just really worried about the AMX-1390 and the AMX-13-105, but luckily for me the 13-105 is towards the north and the 1390 is in a location down in the valley. But oh, what's this? Hello, a customer for the British light tank. How are you doing, old boy? What do you want to buy from my shop today? Well, hopefully he's going to buy sitting still for a very long time while I get to farm him, because that's what you really need when you play your British light tanks. Tanks that sit out in the open for substantial amounts of time so that you can farm them. It doesn't feel like 220 alpha. Come on, it's a tier 10 medium tank. Come on. Oh, thank goodness. Another one. Oh, another one. Okay, the standard B's here as well. Looks like it's buy one, get one free on autoloaders on aisle 7, boys and girls. Okay, 209. Come on, we'll get there. We'll get there. I mean, look at these dream scenarios. How often do you manage to get yourself in the dream position, right? Just wailing down on tanks that are 2 tiers higher than you. Why am I only at 845 damage? 1,000. Great. 2 minutes into the game. If I was in any other light tank, I would be murdering these vehicles. So, a bit of a misplay there by me. I tried to use the auto-aim so that I could keep my vision on the enemy team and not get hit by this standard B again. And you'll notice that the gun elevation over the front of the tank is so much better. And when I actually bucked over that little slope that's in front of me, that meant that we were unable to be able to get the shot down on our opponents. Luckily, we managed to get the standard B. No more undulations in the way. And one more. We're going to put another one in. Oh, not quite. Going to have to go a little bit further forwards. And the 10 degrees of gun depression this tank has over the front still rather nice. Shall I go for the Progetto or the standard B? Ooh, kind of got myself in a little bit of a tricky situation there. Don't want to die. But luckily, 10 degrees of gun depression over the back of the tank as well allows us to finish him off while he was trying to go for the AT-15. And we're just having fun with these auto-loaders. That's just what we needed to do, right? Our team allowed us to gain supremacy for the hill at the start. But still, just look at this! This is like the dream scenario. This is the kind of game where you'd be hoping to be up at like 3 or 4K and you're like going, roar, and you're cheering and you're just... No. No. This tank just can't take advantage of glorious situations. I put myself up here. I'm getting so passionate I nearly shook my headphones off. I really feel so strongly about these British light tanks. Now look, not every tank needs to have godlike DPM, but still, 1,380 on a tier 8 tank? Do they think that you're always going to get -2 matchups? And talk about the ammunition here. Now I'm firing in premium rounds at the IS-3 at a decent distance, and none of them are going through after the first shot. And I'm slowly running out of ammunition that I might need to be able to carry this game. So looking for a shot on the side of the E50 turret. Nice bug there as well, Wargaming. That fence just screwing up my elevation. I wish there was a way to turn elevation off. It looks like this Progetto doesn't like me very much. Look at this guy. What a legend. Okay. And another thing there. I think that was him basically being able to shoot the top of my tank as I came over the ridge. Still think that the sniper mode is bugged, but I should really do a little bit of a test. Maybe I'll do a test on stream tonight if I possibly can to figure it out. But I don't need to test. I'm almost certain that that's the case. So just, I'll stop rambling on about it. I'm really trying to get Wargaming to change it. But another thing is I really want to warn all of you to be careful when you slowly come over a ridge line, when you're in sniper mode, expecting that a tank that has its gun pretty much at the top of the turret will be an advantage for it. And if it doesn't work out for you, then yeah, just be careful, ladies and gents. Alright, so 2,300 damage, 5 kills, and 600 spotting. I'm never going to say that's a bad game for a tier 8 tank. In fact, I was pretty happy about it. But considering how long we've had our opponents out in the open for, it does feel a little bit awkward for me. Alright, maybe I can actually do a little bit of a test here. Is that T-30 going to be shooting at me? Is it me, or did that shell feel like it was going to miss the tank altogether? Hold on. Let's rewind this and actually slow it down so we can see how the shell actually went into our tank. So let's pause and let's do a little bit of a speed up. So we can't quite see him. We can't quite see him. We've got our gun just over the ridgeline. Now watch this. Here we go. Watch this. Look at this. You can see the shell. Hold on, I'll zoom in. If I do that, you can actually see where the shell is, right? Look at it. Look at it. Look at it. I guess I could pause and go into a third-person camera here for you. Am I really sticking that much of my tank over the ridgeline? Am I really sticking that much of my tank over the ridgeline? Okay, here's the shell that killed me. Look at this thing. It's going to shave the ridgeline. Okay, here we go. Go on, shave that ridgeline. Oh. But yeah, I still feel, considering how that shell went over, do you see how it's gone pretty much into our gun there? Because I fell back, I'm 99% certain that we're actually looking out of here, or we're looking out of here. And that means that you just have to expose too much of your turret, and I'm always going to feel it's just an incredibly annoying feature of the tank until Wargaming patch it. So here are the 2 rounds for the LHMTV. The first one on Prokhorovka was 1,405 base experience points, 2,600 damage. Doesn't put us on top, but I guess the 4,393 spotting that we did definitely helped out. A good profit with or without a premium account. But considering this was the dream scenario for the vehicle and we had such a free farm at the end, I just feel like it should have been more. Next up, round 2. This was actually an Oskins medal for destroying 2 or more tanks that were higher tier than us with a light tank. We finished top on experience with 1,222, 4th on damage, even though we got to free farm. And because we had to start firing those APCR rounds at the IS-3, which was ricocheting them left, right, and center because we were pretty much running out of ammunition, we ended up losing credits this game. And a lot of people are probably only going to take APCR rounds in this tank, just because if you get towards the end, then your regular rounds are not enough. They could be the difference between you penetrating the enemy vehicle and not. And when it's a life or death scenario, or should I say a win-loss scenario in this game, can you afford to really put yourself at a disadvantage when your ammunition is just so incredibly low, purely to try and save some credits? Well, in the end, that's only a decision that you're going to be able to make, and it's probably only a decision that you're going to be able to afford to make if you have a premium account and you had some premium tanks to be able to top it up. So the LHMTV, it's definitely not a great tank. In fact, I would go as far as to say this is probably the worst tier 8 light tank. It doesn't have the best camo, it has the worst view range, its gun is okay with regards to penetration and alpha damage, but its damage per minute just stops it from being able to really take advantage of situations. It's so frustrating to play it. The size of this tank is lovely, and I'd say it's definitely better than the Setter is. I absolutely loathe the Setter compared to this tank. But this one, it still holds me back. And I really think that it will hold all of you back as well. And well, I wouldn't say I'm the best light tank player in the world. I really enjoy my light tanks, and I feel like they're a playstyle that works with me. And I still feel that this tank, if I wasn't quite so good as I was, would be incredibly frustrating to play, because I'm having to use every single one of the things that I have learned playing World of Tanks over the last X number of years and X 10,000s of games to even make it remotely competitive. But anyway, that's it for today, ladies and gents. I hope you enjoyed this tank review, or maybe it was just useful for you. If it was, give the video a thumbs up, but if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about the LHMTV, and also if you have one, what's your opinion of it after playing it? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.